We're coming to you from the DraftKings.com podcasting studios. DraftKings.com, America's one-day fantasy sports site, where it's like a new season every time you play. DraftKings.com.
From ESPN's Pod Center, this is NBA Lockdown.
Welcome into another edition of the NBA Lockdown podcast alongside Amin, Elhassan, and Israel Gutierrez. I'm Jorge Sedano. A lot of stuff to get into certainly today. We'll get into some of the actual basketball stuff a little later, but there's some potential front office shakeup we have on one team in the Western Conference. And we start off, though, with a very obviously difficult situation in the city of New York. The Indiana Pacers in town to play the New York Knicks, and the Atlanta Hawks also in town to play the Brooklyn Nets. Chris Copeland and his female companion getting stabbed at a club in Chelsea, New York, both in stable condition right now. Copeland suffered some wounds to his elbow and to his abdomen, but again, both are okay, and that's the word we have right now from the Indiana Pacers. Pero Antic and Flo Rida were also there, and they were arrested for what seems to be just kind of being in the way of police in that situation after there was some sort of confrontation at the club in Chelsea, New York. So I guess the question is, what do you make of this whole situation? Amin, we'll start with you.
Man, this is bad news. This goes back to the old saying, nothing good happens at 4 in the morning, especially on a Tuesday night. Like, it's disappointing for both of these teams. And I know I don't want to sound like grandpa, get off my lawn, but if you're the Pacers, you're Chris Copeland. You guys are fighting for your playoff lives. And I know you haven't been, your playing time has been erratic, but still, man, this isn't the time to go sample the nightlife. Even though One Oak, which is the name of the club, it's a great place. But the other side of that equation, which wasn't immediately apparent until our Chris Broussard actually reported about it, the Hawks were out there too, because they're playing the Nets tomorrow. And to me, this is really shocking because the Hawks were coming off. They played in Atlanta. They beat the Suns handily. And they flew to New York, and they're playing the Nets tomorrow. So it's literally right in the middle of a back-to-back. You're winding down the season. And I know most people say, well, they've got everything locked up. Who cares? Well, they have a pick swap with the Brooklyn Nets. So basically, if there's one team that they have a vested interest in seeing being as awful and miserable as possible, it's Brooklyn. This isn't the time to be out, and even if you're out, it's definitely not the time to be out until 4 in the morning. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, to me, again, as the old school front office guy, I know guys like to go out, but let's have some discretion. Let's control ourselves in certain circumstances.
Well, all right. So I understand I understand there's the Atlanta Hawks guys not being out or not wanting them to be out. I mean, that part was pretty surprising when you consider they just played a game. This is the actual part. Like, look, I'm no longer in my 20s. I never was a big club person to begin with. But I don't understand the thought process of playing an NBA game, landing in a city at what? After midnight, right?
Well after midnight.
After midnight, and your first thought is, must go back out again. Like this night, I guess they're only going to be in New York the one night or what have you, but, I mean, come on, how many times have you been in New York? And I've never been to One Oak, but is it that great of a spot? Like, that's the part that's confusing to me is why now, I don't really care what these guys do necessarily. I mean, I'm sure if they've done it this time, this is not the first time they've done it, but it's a little confusing to think that that's where you first go. But the other part that's confusing about this is I'd like to have a camera, just a shot, a video of what happened here, because what are they doing obstructing justice in this situation? Like, what is their gain from not letting whatever the heck is supposed to happen here formally by the police not happen? Because unless they're absolutely thoroughly confused with what happened, one of their NBA brethren got hurt, and they should have been able to, just get out of the way. I don't understand what happened there.
Yeah, look, I don't get the Pero Antic Flo part of this equation. And again, we don't really have all the information, so I hate to rush to judgment on those guys' involvement. in this
That's why it's
situation. Because it
confusing.
just seems like they were bystanders who happened to just be impeding the process of the police. At least that's what.
To the point where they get arrested, though.
But hey,
Right.
It doesn't make any sense.
But here's the thing. I will give them the benefit of the doubt, like about this. And this might be controversial when I say this, but as a New York native, I feel okay saying this. I'm not, the NYPD has been known to just get brolic for no reason. They like to do things. Oh, you got an NBA player. Oh, you think you're tough. You're going downtown with me. That could absolutely happen. And in that sense, it's not their fault. But it is their fault for being out at 4 a.m, again, in the middle of, if it was an off night before or off night after, but in the middle of a back-to-back, when I know those guys are sore, they're hurting, it's the end of the year, everybody's dealing with some sort of issues. Yeah, it might be worth it to get a good night's sleep. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, listen, and to that part of the equation, look, I remember being a young man in my 20s, not that I'm a old man in my 30s, but a younger man in my 20s, and I was out one night partying on South Beach, okay? And I was at a club, and Allen Iverson was at a club. And Allen Iverson was there having a great time, as he should. He's an adult. And he had a 1 o'clock game Sunday, and this is the time when NBC had the games, 1 o'clock Sunday tip on NBC, okay, against the Miami Heat.
What are we talking about?
Exactly. I'll tell you what we're talking about, Alan. And I'll tell you this. Now, the clubs on South Beach close at 5 in the morning. And it was 5 in the morning. And let's just say I saw Allen Iverson not necessarily looking like he had only had glasses of water that night, right? Which is fair. He's an adult. He can drink whatever he wants to drink. But let's just say everyone who was walking out at 5 in the morning, we were all probably not in our best condition at that point. And he went out the next day, 1 o'clock tip, okay, and scored 50 on the Heat.
Nice.
So you know what? Like, I don't, the NBA lifestyle for guys who are single or guys who are going out or guys who are used to that lifestyle, they're out partying all day, all night. I've seen it. It's nothing new. They're adults. If they can handle the way they treat their bodies, whether it's drinking or hanging out or being up late and not getting enough sleep and still able to perform the next day, they certainly have a better gauge of that than you or me. So I'm not going to sit here and chastise a bunch of adults for wanting to go out at 4 in the morning, as long as they make it to where they're supposed to be the next day. Now, granted, we're talking about an outlier situation. Hold on. We're talking about an outlier situation where, look, there was this commotion that happened, and we don't know how it went down. And Chris Copeland, unfortunately, and his female companion are dealing with the ramifications of that. And obviously, then you have Pero Antic and Thabo Cephalosha also dealing with that. But that's not a regular occurrence. Guys in the league, you know this, Amin. You work in the front office. Izzy, you've covered this league as well as long as anyone. You know this is what happens. And we're going to overreact to one outlier situation here.
Here's my thing, George. It's first of all, that is why you try. I'm not saying you don't go out. I'm just saying you try to be rational with your going out. So again, that risk is inherent every time you go out. And again, in the words of Jay-Z, if I shoot you, I'm brainless. If you shoot me, you're famous. Like it's a double standard. You can't go out and just have a good time because people are going to mess with you because of your status as a professional athlete. And again, I'm not saying don't go out, but if you have if you are literally in the middle of a back-to-back, and you have a vested interest in beating the team that you're playing tomorrow night, in the case of the Hawks, maybe that's just the night where you just, hey, you know what, I'm gonna call it in this one, or I'm gonna go in, I'll do the lap, a couple laps around, and then I'm out. But to stay the whole time until there's stuff outside and it's just look at the situation you got yourself in, and look at what now the team has to deal with in terms of people like us talking about it, the papers talking about it, etc.
All right, now listen, this is the thing. Maybe that's exactly what Pero Antic and Thabo Cephalosha were doing. As you said, their flight got in way after midnight. It's 4 in the morning. Who knows? They may have just gotten there for all we know. Maybe they were just doing a couple of laps. And they became at 4. Well, wait a second. If you're flying in, let's say you're You're the Hawks. They played last night. You're getting in 1 or 2 in the morning probably. By the time you check into the hotel, get dressed and roll back out, I mean, you're getting there, it's 2 or 3 in the morning. So, yeah, chances are they've only been there for an hour or so.
That might be the one that they take an L on. Like, that's my point. That might be the one to take an L on. Like, man, it's 3 o'clock. You know what?
Okay, but what are the you're not going out. You go out every night, chances are, if you're these guys, okay? And you're going to go and say, okay, this is the night I'm going to get arrested because I'm standing there trying to figure out what's happening? Like, you can't think like that either. I mean, I could go outside and get run over by a bus. I'm sure some people would enjoy that, but I probably wouldn't. But, but that's just the way it works. Like, you can't live your life saying, okay, this is the night something's going to happen. You don't know.
No, I'm not saying this is the night something's going to happen. I'm just saying this is the night. If I can't get there until 3 o'clock, maybe this is I can't get there until, I'm out till 3 o'clock. I can't even get there till 3 o'clock. Maybe that's the one where we just take the L and say, damn, we just got here a little too late.
In most cities, you can say that because most cities shut down by 2. But New York, Miami, those are 2 cities where you can go out, and you definitely can go out at 2 or 3 in the morning when you land in. You know, hey, man, I can circle this one on my calendar because even though we got a back-to-back, I know that New York City and Miami and South Beach or whatever, they're open late, and we can go out and have a good time and see what's up.
This is the first time ever in my life that I've been painted as the prude. Like, you're too straight-laced. You want a glass of milk and a
I know what's going to happen here. I know what's going to happen here. My mentions are going to get flooded later with, oh, you're an idiot. What are you talking about? And Amin is right. And, it's just one day. Okay, great. You know what? That's fine. I know I'm going to be in the minority on this one. But I'm just telling you that this is the lifestyle a lot of these guys live as professional athletes, and specifically in the NBA. And you don't think that this is the night that something's going to happen, especially if you're the Hawks players. Like, you didn't even weren't the ones in the altercation. You were, like, just there.
Man, I just think that, like, there's a happy medium between being the guy curled up with a book by the fireplace and being the dude who shuts down One Oak, regardless of circumstances the next day. I think there's a happy medium. You could be the guy who goes out, and maybe some nights you just don't go out. Like, it's happened. I've seen it before.
Listen, I'm not disputing that. I get what you're saying, but I'm just saying, like, I get the other side of it, too.
I find it curious, and I don't know what to make of this necessarily, but that it is Chris Copeland, Pero Antic, Tavo Cephalosha. Like, there's no Jeff Teague, Al Horford, Paul George, or Roy Hibbert at these places. Are they there, and they're just not getting in trouble?
I'm not the guy who's like college rules, 11 o'clock curfew, check out the light, after the lights out, we do the rounds to make sure you're in your bed. Like you said, George, they're grown men. They can do whatever they want as long as they show up to perform at work. But I just think sometimes you, as a responsible adult, not as a player, not as an athlete, not as a millionaire, just as a responsible adult, you can make the executive decision for yourself that sometimes maybe this isn't the best circumstance for you to be going out. And that's regardless of whether something happens that night or not. Just the idea of maybe this week, maybe we just button down a little bit. Or maybe this particular 2 nights, this ain't the one to do it. And again, as I think Izzy mentioned earlier, they've been to New York before. I'm pretty sure they're going to go to New York again. I'm pretty sure that they can enjoy the city life. It's not like it's contingent that it has to happen now because the team is in town. And if I'm Pero Antic and I show up any other day, maybe One Oak won't respect me as much.
Okay, well, I agree with all that. I understand what you're saying, and yes, New York will be there, and you'll have more chances. But, I think what you're doing is you're playing the result here. Like, I don't think that you go into that thinking that. That's just kind of my point here.
That's true. That's true.
All right. Now, hopefully, Chris Copeland and his female companion are okay. Again, they're in stable condition. And hopefully everything gets resolved and they're okay. And hopefully the Hawks guys are okay. And everybody can get on the court as quickly as possible. Now, another issue that's arisen here, off the court per se, is the situation in Sacramento. And it has nothing to do with any off-the-field problems, or off-the-court problems, but it has to do with the hierarchy in the Sacramento organization. And our Mark Stein reports that Vlade Divac, who, as far as I knew, was part of the front office staff, but now has been placed in a position of ultimate power and ultimate decision-making ability. Am I missing something here, or did Pete D'Alessandro just
seem to come
not
out
there
of nowhere?
anymore? Yeah, like what happened
This is
here?
Amin's favorite subject, though. This is Amin's favorite subject. I mean, you have to go here. I mean, this is your favorite owner of all time.
I mean, I've been. Oh, by the way, not to divert. I just saw a tweet that says Hawks Salvo Cephalosha seen limping following his arrest with video.
Ruh-roh.
All right, but anyways, the whole Vladi thing. First of all, I love there's this tweet from Complex Sports. It says, Vladi, what do you mean you spent the entire mid-level exception on cigarettes? That's awful. Oh man, no, this is again. It's funny in an effort to prove that he's not a bad owner. It seems like he continues to prove that he's a bad owner, and part of this bad ownership is this wild, rash, emotional decision making. Get rid of the coach. Get rid of the other coach. Get rid of my GM. Like, calm down, my man. Let it breathe. Like, let the season end. Let's plan. Let's do this the right way with a process, with like thought behind it. But the problem is he's a wild cowboy who thinks that he's smarter than everybody else, that we're all dumb, every other team, everybody in the media, we're just idiots who've been doing it the same way. But no, here he comes. He's the Steve Jobs of basketball. He's going to come and invent this thing that it's a touchscreen thing that we write all our notes on. He calls it an iPad. And we're going to play 4-on-5 basketball. We call that smart basketball. And I'm going to just wheel and deal and get Vladi back in. And this is not a knock on Vladi. He's one of the most beloved figures in basketball, international or NBA. He's done a good job being the president of the Serbian Basketball Federation. You know, he's brought that team back into prominence. By the way, kind of by eschewing, if I'm pronouncing that word right, eschewing NBA Serbian players in terms of homegrown ones. Vladi's a good dude, and for all I know, he might be a very good basketball executive. But again, there's a way you do this so that you don't come across looking like an emotional wild wreck. And it's kind of the same thing. Sacramento is New York West. This guy is Jim Dolan West. The idea that I can hire Steve Mills on the eve of training camp, fire Grant Grunwald, and then a year later hire Phil Jackson to, like, it's just, yo, man, calm down. Stop drinking, switch to decaf, something, I don't know.
Yo, Amin is on fire today. He's very amped up with these topics. Everybody stay home, and all owners don't get on his bad side, because he will go off on you. I love it. Here's my question about this, Amin, and help me out here, somebody. What are Vlade Divac's credentials in this situation? Like, is he just everybody's favorite Sacramento King ever, or is he a guy that has any sort of real clue in terms of how to build a team? Because I don't know of it. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, me neither.
Well, again, as I said, he was the president of the Serbian Basketball Federation, and they've been pretty well in international play. So, I mean, he does have some managerial acumen, albeit not on an NBA level, but, you know, he's done it. Maybe we could call him the David Blatt of front office work. But again, I think it goes beyond that. First of all, he didn't get this job because he did such a great job with the Serbian Basketball Federation. He got this job because he's Vlade, the most beloved Sacramento King ever.
Right.
Between him and Mitch, I would say, right?
Well, and look, again, I'm not comparing Vlade Divac's career to the guy I'm about to mention, but in the NFL, why did John Elway become the president of the Denver Broncos?
Yep, that's true. That's true.
Same concept.
It is the exact same concept. Again, and we're not saying that Vlade is the greatest center ever in the same way that some people say that Elway is, but he's beloved in Sacramento in much the way that Elway is beloved in Denver. And I don't know if a lot of fans in other markets know that. They're like, come on, really, Vlade? But yeah, he goes back there. He is a king among kings, so to speak. But that's, again, this is all kind of in the same vein of, you know, why would you hire Phil Jackson to run your front office? Because Phil Jackson's a name that, you know, New Yorkers will gravitate to and respect and things like that. It has nothing to do with Phil Jackson's prior experience as a front office member. Oh, that's right, he didn't have any.
So what are we doing here with the Kings? Like, what are we making of that? We're just basically saying they have no idea what we're doing and that they're being run by a crazy person?
Yeah, a little bit of that, it seems like. And here's the thing. I mean, Vlade Divac and George Karl, are they on? I mean, they seem to be on similar pages, right? They're offense first, up and down, I guess, passing the ball, that type of. It would seem in that respect, just to give them some sort of credit, that if they're going to put everybody on the same page and everybody's going to be in unison over there in terms of decision making, then that would be a good start. And I don't see necessarily those two clashing. I think those two can probably work together pretty well, no?
Yeah, unless the owner comes in and decides that he doesn't like the process and wants to change things again. Right? That's my point.
Do you think this was made in any sort of haste, like because of Chris Mullen leaving, or weren't they not on the same page too? I mean, there've been issues with a lot of people over there, no?
Our guy Mark Stein in his piece said that kind of Chris Mullen had already been on the outs a little bit because he was on Mike Malone's side, didn't want to fire Mike Malone. And Vivek Ranadive was very adamant that Mike Malone needed to go. And so once that happened, I think Mully was like, all right, well, let me plot my exit strategy. Because, the whole point of being an advisor is that I have the ear of the owner and I have none of the culpability if things go wrong. Well, if you no longer have the ear of the owner, you're just kind of this dude who's annoying and sits in the room that nobody listens to. So it's not as tantalizing a situation anymore.
Did Chris Mullen just leave? Did he just take the St. John's job just to be out of Sacramento?
I think it's a good job for him, right? If you have aspirations to coach, which it sounds like he did, and it's your alma mater in your hometown, he probably I was going to say probably a good 40-minute drive away from his home in Brooklyn because traffic is terrible. But yeah, I mean, it's not like he went and took Metro State or Georgia Southern. He went and took a job that there's a connection there. He can
mean something to him.
Yeah, exactly. No,
he doesn't really strike me as someone who's going to go all out on recruiting or everything. Like that's just something that feels like an acquired.
But that's part of. But I think that's part of the staff that you hire, because really it's your assistants that do a lot of the recruiting, and that's why they call them bagmen for other reasons also. But the other thing also is for him. I always feel because our colleague Avery Johnson just took the Alabama job. I think whenever you have a regional, local tie, and you have success on the NBA level, it gives you a leg up on a lot of these other coaches. If you're not obviously Coach K and Cal and these guys, they have their racket going. But Andy Kennedy, to give you an example, versus Avery Johnson, trying to recruit for the same kid. Like, if I'm a kid, like, I know who Avery Johnson is. I've seen on YouTube him hitting a game-winning shot, win a championship. I've seen him coach a team to the finals. He's coached Dirk. He's coached Darren Williams. He's coached, he's played with Tim Duncan. Coach Popovich. He played for Coach Popovich. He's got a resume. Chris Mullen, same thing. I've seen him, I've seen the YouTube clips of him. I've seen on NBA TV guys talking about Chris Mullen was the toughest dude they had to guard. He played for Don Nelson. He's had a long NBA career. When those guys come and sit in the living room and say, I can get you to the next level. I know what it takes. And by the way, they both have personal stories that makes it more than just, if LeBron James was sitting in your living room and say, yeah, just be 6'8" and 250 pounds and everything takes care of itself. In Chris Mullen's case, I've had problems with substance abuse. I've seen how the lifestyle can turn you down the wrong way. I'm here to show you not to make those same mistakes I made and be successful. Wow, I can listen to that dude. Avery Johnson, I wasn't drafted. I'm 5'8", I'm 170 pounds dripping wet. I couldn't shoot threes, but somehow I carved out this long NBA career to the point where they're hanging my jersey up in San Antonio, the place where they've won all these championships. That resonates more than, again, I'm not trying to kill these guys because I'm sure they're fine college coaches, but Larry Eustace or Randy Bennett or exactly like, if I'm a kid, I don't know you, son, unless you just went to the tournament and went to like the Final Four.
All right, well, let me ask you this. I want to take this back to the Kings then, because it seems to me like in some respect, if you're trying to lure free agents, you have Vlade Divac telling you, look, not everybody can win in Sacramento. I won in Sacramento as a player. And I know the town. I know we can do this. Don't worry about the owner. He put me in charge of things for a reason. Let's go win some games in Sacramento because they already have, they have the difficult part. They have the superstar, and they have the quality head coach. And now they need some other pieces in. I mean, and he's somewhere in there, isn't he? Vladdy seems like a schmoozer to me, and I think he can make things happen. Like I think he, pull out the, box of Newports or whatever he smokes, and just go at it. I don't think it's a terrible choice. I just don't understand. I didn't know he would be interested in doing this, but I think it seems to make sense to me. It's less crazy and more just trendy, and whatever. I don't have a huge problem with it.
No, let me put the kibosh on that. First of all,
I'm sorry. Do we have Stephen A. on the podcast today?
No. I was thinking about Pop. First of all, and the clique you claim. No. First off, this idea that schmoozing that's such a small part of running a basketball operation.
What do we give Pat Riley credit for all the time? He comes in with his bag of rings, and he convinces people to sign with his franchise.
But he does that on
the money. The money is the same as every other team.
No, but he does that on top of excellent cap management and pretty good scouting. We always talk about those guys that he plucks from the D League. They all or off waivers or whatever. They all seem to turn into bona fide NBA players, and those are skills. And among everything, what else we say about Riley? He's a great leader. He's a great manager, right? A leader of men. That's a skill, but these are many skills. It's not just the one thing. Second of all, NBA is not like college. In college, nobody's getting paid. So really, the only thing you have to offer is the promise that A, the kid will get to play the way he wants to play, and B, I can get you to the next level. Really, B should be A. Getting you to the next level is probably the number one thing on most major college recruits' minds. In the NBA, there's a salary cap, and there's how much money you can pay me, and how much money you're willing to pay me, and how much money he should pay these people, by the way. Because me smoothing Ben Simmons and telling him come to LSU, there's no skin on my back. If it don't work out, I cancel the scholarship, I'll go get someone else next year. But me telling Ben Simmons 5 years from now, come play for the Kings, we'll give you $100 million. If I make a mistake on that, I got to live with that mistake for 5 years, for the duration of that contract. So there is a huge difference there.
Yeah, I know there's a difference, but in the end, he's a deal closer. Like, they come up with their game plan and then who they target, and in the end, he's the one who's supposed to close the deal, and I think he can do that.
You think Vladdy's the guy that's going to close the deal? Come on, man.
I mean, over who? Over Pat Riley, over other guys? I don't know, but if you're going to have somebody represent Sacramento, might as well be Vladdy Divac instead of some dude I don't know.
Just make sure you get him the red top Marlboros and not no Newports or
Listen, awful. I feel like with the nicotine, and he's probably a caffeine addict too. Coffee is for closers. Vladdy will be fine. I'm with Izzy on this.
Hey man, we can ask Shaq about how clutch Vladdy was.
Well, maybe Shaq is. Shaq is involved with that team. Maybe Shaq will be part of the team that'll help close things. But who knows?
I've witnessed Shaq's fatherly advice up close. I don't know if players gravitate to that.
No, I know what you're saying, but we'll see. I mean, look, it's always interesting. They definitely keep us on our toes there in Sacramento, so we'll see how that goes. Speaking of keeping guys on their toes, well, I don't know if that's maybe even the right analogy at this point with Byron Scott. He made comments recently
stepping on their toes.
Yeah. He made comments. Right. He made comments recently about how he wouldn't want to be in a foxhole with any of these guys on his team, and then he went and kind of couched that a little bit later and just said, it's just out of frustration. But, man, look, there are probably, my guess is at least a couple of guys on that roster that are going to stick for next season. And I'd be a little bit out of shape. I'd be like, what is your deal? Like, my guess is Mitch or Jeannie or somebody or Jim Buss kind of pulled Byron aside and said, hey, man, we're going to have to keep some of these guys, so you may need to just chill on that thing. Like, Byron's made a lot of strange comments this year. This one, no different. Izzy, your thoughts?
He still hasn't really separated himself from being a player, it feels like. Like he's some combination of angry teammate and old school head coach. And right now I don't know if either of those necessarily work in today's game unless you're more established. And I know he's had some success as a head coach, particularly with the Nets. But it feels like it's not really going to translate into it's not going to the players aren't going to listen to him. And here's my biggest problem with it is basically all these things he says as a head coach, they kind of have a Kobe vibe to them. It seems like they kind of echo or at the very least a Kobe style to them, and the way and the fact that he's even offering these things and the way he offers them. And you can't have Kobe and the head coach be the same person. Like, there has to be some differentiation there. There has to be maybe, a reason to think that, okay, well, if Kobe can't get across to me, then the head coach has to. Or if the head coach can't get across to me, then maybe somebody, my leader on the team, which is Kobe, can. But if they're kind of the same person, it's not going to work. If they take the same approach, it's not going to work. And I think he needs to just sort of back off and just be a little bit less, whatever you want to call that, intense, old school, player mentality. Be more. I mean, you can't say this about your team without your team. Even if there are guys on that team thinking that they weren't the ones he was talking about, there are going to be others that are saying, well, what's he going to say about me if I don't do this? Or what's going to, there are going to be question marks left and right. And I just think it was a bad mistake by Byron Scott there.
Yeah, man. I think you hit it on the head. Is this him, or is this him kowtowing to his boy? Is this his boy directly dictating? Either way, again, this goes back to my whole thing about players. Who wants to go play there? Who wants to go play for a coach who throws you under the bus? And the Lakers can talk into their blue in the face about, we don't want players who wouldn't want to come and be, judged harshly. The 90s ain't walking through that door, or whatever. The 2000s aren't walking through that door. It's a wrap. You guys got to let go of this idea that there are people who are, oh man, I almost cussed on air. There are people who are, dreaming of nothing but wearing the purple and gold, and would willingly accept the tongue lashing from both Kobe and Byron. Just, these two of my favorite Laker players of all time. I can't believe I'm playing for. Those guys don't exist anymore. Guys want to get paid, they want to win, and they don't want to get treated like crap. They want to know that this locker room thing is sacred. And what he's doing, I get it. This is a lost season anyway. Most of these guys won't be back. But again, you tell me what player wants to be a part of that organization.
I think money counts. In this situation, they're going to have a lot of it, so somebody's going to want to play there. I do think that. I don't know if Byron, though, I'm with you on this. I don't know if Byron's the guy fit for this rebuild that they're going through. I mean, if this is what's happening in year one, what's going to happen next year? Because I don't think they're going to be much better next year. I think they can be a little better, but I don't think they're going to be that much better. So it's one of those situations where you look at his history, and he went to 2 finals, but despite that, Jason Kidd didn't want him around and went with Lawrence Frank.
It's 100 years ago. It's 100 years ago. How long did he get to...
I know, but my point is that despite that, Jason Kidd still didn't want him around and pushed him out for Lawrence Frank. So that kind of just goes to show you that he's not a player's guy by any stretch of the imagination. You're going to cater to a guy in Kobe who's got another year left on his deal. Like, I don't know if that's smart either. But I do think guys will eventually go there, but I also don't think Byron is fit to be the coach there for very long.
I guess. I mean, that's true. I think this has all been kind of like I hope Byron knows, by the way. This is all a snow job that he's gonna be the first one shown to the door as soon as the team has any semblance of talent on there. But my thing is this: it's hard as an organization. Even if the dude isn't there, you're still the organization that had that dude employed and stood behind him while he said those things, right? Like, we didn't get the statement from Mitch yet. It's been a couple of days now. I still haven't heard Mitch say, yeah, Byron was kind of a little getting emotional or whatever. That's really not how we feel. We love our guys. Like, we didn't hear any of that. The buses just everyone kind of held their tongue. Well, I guess that's about. I mean, so it is kind of an organizational stance. And I don't know if I know.
Here's the other thing about it, though, is when he says a sentence like, I think they'd end up shooting me in the back. Shouldn't the organization suddenly say, well, if you've got that kind of relationship with these players, and this is a situation where there's not a lot of pressure or any pressure. There's not a whole lot of anxiety here other than the people who are playing for their jobs, for their livelihood. When you got that type of relationship where you can outwardly say some of them might, shoot me in the back in that sort of hypothetical, you've got to wonder what kind of relationship he's fostering with these players to begin with. Because just ask yourself this question. Would Greg Popovich say that? Would Doc Rivers say that? Would Tom Thibodeau say that? Eric Spoelstra, Rick Carlisle, anybody you consider the better coaches in the league, Steve Kerr, Mike Budenholzer, none of those guys are saying that. And I don't know if they would have said that in 1985, 1995. I can maybe, if Pat Riley was having a really difficult year or something like that, I would maybe hear him say something to that effect, but then he'd back off. But, I just don't see any of these other coaches saying things like that, and it just makes you wonder what kind of relationship he's fostering with his players.
Question. Do you guys think that when he said they might shoot me in the back, did he mean that in terms of, like, the gang who can't shoot straight? Like, like, we're just a bunch of... Or did he mean...
No, I think they meant that they hate him.
Oh,
yes.
Wow.
I think he meant that he doesn't trust his players.
Right, and they hate him. Right, pretty simple.
Yes.
So, well, anyway, as the Western Conference turns, we'll get to that, I'm sure, throughout the rest of the week and the next couple of weeks. And we've got, another week or a little over a week now before the postseason starts. So at least we can get winding down into that. So I feel like there were some obvious topics that we needed to get into today, and we got into them. So thanks to you guys for stopping by. Thanks to Amin. Thanks to Israel. I'm Jorge Sedano. Coming up in 60 seconds, Carrie Champion goes one-on-one with Flo Rida. That's next here on the NBA Lockdown Podcast.
It's going down for real.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
One-on-one.
Today I'm very excited. Not today. You just told me not to say it. Sorry. Do it again.
All right, guys. Here we go. 3.
I do live TV.
2.
One-on-one.
Our next guest, this is a big deal. I mean, it's a huge deal. I don't want him to even say anything. I do want to mention, though, that he's here because he's partnered up with ESPN NCAA Tournament Challenge Contest. There were over 11,000 participants, and the lucky winner had the opportunity, 2 lucky winners actually, had the opportunity to hang out with Flo Rida. Flo, thank you so much for being on the NBA Lockdown Podcast. How are you?
Oh, man, I'm excellent. You always a pleasure to come here and be with family.
Yeah, that's right. You are family because you and I often find ourselves talking about the NBA once a year on First Take. And now that you're on the podcast, it's even better because you can let loose and be honest this time.
Yes.
So I normally look.
I'm always honest, though.
You are, but
Yeah.
I think sometimes you're like me. You're like a fan. And so you talk with your heart like I do. Am I wrong?
Gotcha.
Oh, okay, so listen, every year we looked forward to you heading down to South Beach because
Correct.
Miami was always in the mix.
You get 2 for 1.
Yeah, right? So you look at the Eastern Conference standings, you guys are on the outside looking in. You may not even make the playoffs.
Oh, man, definitely I'm emotional about that. But, I have to be excited, for the forthcoming year. The fact that we do have some awesome players. And I mean, I expected, I made my prediction, and it's not going through. I don't think so, to be quite honest. But like I said, I look forward to having an amazing year next year. I'm loving the fact that D Wade is doing his thing, and as long as he stay injury free, to be that self motivator for the team and everything, I think it'll be a plus. And having veterans like my man Bosh coming back, like right now he's out because of physical reasons that we definitely I'm in prayer about. I'm pretty sure the team is, and my man Whiteside, I mean, just looking at him, I mean he's just came through as like a blessing from above. I mean, this guy, I think he's going to be one of the greatest centers in our time.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because if in fact a series of things had to happen in order for Whiteside to actually become who he is on that team, and we know who he is in terms of what kind of player he can be. LeBron left, Bosh is out. I want to know, and you take me back to the finals last year. I would not have thought LeBron would have left. Correct. And went to Cleveland. There's no way you could have sold me on that idea. Do you have some inside scoop, some inside track as to why LeBron decided to leave? And when you heard the news, what was your reaction?
Man, I was just actually celebrating the fact that, you know, we have an amazing team, and I'm pretty sure like anybody else, I was like, was it some personal reason? Like, what was it? You know, the fact that he left, but, you know, to each his own. And, you know, to have an amazing team and to leave, you know, just says a lot about him. You know, we can, as a fan of the Miami Heat, we can look at the negative, but I also look at the positive. You know, to mess around and have a great team and decide to leave, not knowing what your next team will be, says that, you know, he really wants to be looked at as an even greater player. You know.
That is a really good way to look at it. There are also those fans who felt like he packed up and left because it was a sinking ship. There was talk of Dwayne Wade not being healthy. This was it for him. He maybe had 1 or 2 good years left because of the way they rested him. There was talk that, you know, he and Pat Riley didn't get along. Pat Riley even said some very, very harsh comments, you know, after the loss. Like, you don't pick up and pack up and leave. You stay put. So are you in that camp where you could understand why fans said, you abandoned us? We could have did this one more time. You were family down here in South Beach.
I totally understand that. And then, you know, looking at Cleveland when he left, you seen the reaction they had. You know, it was crazy. So we don't know what he was going through personally, where he felt like, you know, he got a couple of rings in Miami and he needs to go back home and, you know, try to, you know, mend things over there. So, I mean, I'm a big, like, I know what I do and, you know, what it takes to be successful. I'm the guy who who definitely will stick it out, you know, try to stick it out no matter what. But, you know, he's in a position where anything could fickle, you know, like you said. He probably wasn't sure if, you know, other players would stick around and things like that, you know, just to, you know, not to look at things one-sided.
Sure. Okay, so that's a fair response, and I'm only reason why I'm saying that is because you live in Miami. You represent Miami when it comes to teams. You're more one of the more vocal, famous people. You support the Dolphins. Obviously, you still support the Heat. I have a hard time believing you though when you tell me the fan base is still as strong.
Yes.
At American Airlines.
Yes. I mean, like, I promise. Like, from what I know, it's like LeBron never left. Or it's like he's coming in today, for real. Like, like a lot of times if I'm not home, I normally get courtside season tickets, and this time I didn't, and they holler me all the time for tickets. Or if I call for tickets, they're like, "I'm sold out," and I'm like, "Wow."
Now they can't see because this is a podcast. I'm giving you the evil eye. I'm waiting for you to try to Pinocchio.
And just from a business standpoint, like, I had a lot of friends that travel in and out of the country, you know, from overseas and things like that. And a lot of times they always go to the Heat game. And it's almost like, I think it's almost like being in LA, you know. Okay. They don't have a great team at this time, but no one will pass on a Lakers ticket. Just because they want to go and, you know, be around the scene as far as, you know, you have a lot of movie stars and different people there. So that's what you get being in Miami. You get 2 for 1. If the team is doing great, you know, it's awesome. And if they're not doing great, you're still going to go there and see different celebrities. And I think that's what the fans get a kick out of.
They get the best of both worlds, no matter what. It's still an experience. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll receive that. Okay, so then.
And when the last time you've been to Miami?
I haven't been to Miami in a minute.
It's growing. It's growing.
I see. Okay, that's an invite. I'm coming to Miami. I'm going to see what the games are like. If you guys make it to the postseason, I most definitely will try to check out one of the games. So, speaking of the postseason, who do you think will make it to the finals?
Well, definitely. I think we'll see Houston.
Really?
Yeah.
The Houston Rockets.
Yeah, man. I think we'll see them, and definitely
Coming out of the West. Interesting.
Golden State.
Okay, so if you had to choose, who's coming out of the West?
I'm messing with Golden State.
Okay, and then who's coming out of the East?
I'm really not sure.
Really? You don't want to give it to Cleveland?
You know what?
Atlanta?
I have to give it to Cleveland.
All right.
Got to give it to Cleveland.
All right. So stats would say that you are correct. Golden State and Cleveland, as of now, look like the best two options to meet in the finals. So who would win it all?
That would be crazy if Cleveland win.
Could you imagine?
That would be crazy.
No, seriously. Let's just sit and think about that for a moment. If LeBron was able to do what he's been able to do, because when he came to Cleveland early on in the beginning of the season, he seemed depressed. He didn't seem happy. He wasn't getting along with players. It was obvious that they didn't know that he was coming. There was a whole different mentality than there is right now. So to watch that team adjust and get under and basically get on board with what LeBron is trying to sell has been amazing. And for that alone, I give him all the credit.
All the props.
But could you imagine if they won? What would happen? How would his legacy be? How would you consider him in terms of what type of player he is?
I think all of the naysayers would definitely think they've seen a ghost. But honestly, I think being a player and him being around, greatness, because the players that he played around in Miami would definitely with some great players.
Mm-hmm.
And for him to leave, he might have already had this in his head. The fact that he's young, he still has more time, and to actually see them come and take another championship, that would be crazy. The fact that you see, it would be the greatest thing to happen of our time, just to see the fans diss him out there in Cleveland. He come to Miami, win a couple championships, and then our fans get upset.
Yes.
He leave. And he go conquer a championship. It's like, I think he inspired, not just basketball players. He inspired people from
all around
when it comes to different sports.
And by the
to be
way,
self-motivated.
Exactly. And we would want him. I'd be like, well, can you come to my team? Can you bring my city a championship? Josh, you might have to look this up for me. When's the last time Cleveland, in general, had a championship? They haven't had one since the Browns, right? Was it in the 50s, 60s?
Wow.
What was it?
It was in the 60s. Hold on for the year.
So he brings that city a championship, and they haven't seen any type of chip since 1960, whatever.
I think that erased all the hate they ever
Browns,
had.
guys, 64 Browns.
Before we were born, like crazy, way before we were born. So could you even imagine? Okay, so here's the deal. Let's consider this. You don't want to give obviously somebody who wins. You don't know if it's going to be Cleveland or Golden State if you had to pick between your two choices. But would you give the edge at this moment to the West? Because most of the power is in the West.
Definitely, right? As of now, definitely the West is handling things. So I definitely have to take my hat off to him.
Okay. I got to ask you a personal question.
Uh-oh.
You ready?
Let's go.
Why are you looking away? Ladies and gentlemen, it's not that personal, but I want you just to be as honest as you possibly can with me.
I'm always honest.
But I need you to give me details. I'm
okay.
Fascinated. I'm completely fascinated with the fascination that rappers have with athletes and athletes have with rappers. There's a fascination there. A bromance, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't understand. It's almost like y'all want to be in the gym and they want to be in the studio. Why is that?
I think, because, me personally, like, growing up, my first love was basketball. And then to make it as a rapper, that's the thing I do as a hobby. And I think a couple of the people that I've ran into, it's the same thing for them. They wanted to be rappers and wind up becoming basketball players, or singers and wind up becoming basketball players. So I think that's where we have our similarities.
They go hand in hand. It's a relationship. Seriously, they listen to you guys before they warm up. You motivate them.
Up.
Yeah. What is that? Tell me.
Yeah, and even myself being on stage and things like that, I play basketball just to stay in shape. So,
it's a true connection. It's not a bromance. It's not somebody just idolizing one another just because. It's just a true connection.
Organic.
It's organic.
Yes.
All right. I like it. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
Thanks to Kerry Champion and Flo Rida there in that interview. All right, that'll wrap it up for us. Want to thank Amin, Elhassan, Israel Gutierrez. I'm Jorge Sedano. Thanks again to Carrie and to Flo Rida. We'll talk to you again on Friday. You guys enjoy the games, and we'll talk to you before the weekend's out. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to NBA Lockdown on ESPN Radio. For more great podcasts, check out the Pod Center page on ESPNradio.com.